And to get a broader view about the outlook for the Prabowo administration's foreign policy, joining us this morning is Muhammad Waffaa Kharisma. He was a researcher at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Indonesia, or CSIS. Good morning, Mas Waffaa. Thank you for joining us online today.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
So let's just get started by discussing our first point, which is Indonesia's domestic politics is dominated by the president's coalition. However, this is not the first time this has happened in Asia. So how do you think this will actually affect foreign sentiment about our future?
Absolutely. First of all, I think a lot of us have been talking about the size of the coalition, the size of the ministers and vice ministers, which at first can be a concern because, with more people, it would mean more stakeholders. That would mean more bureaucracies and more voices, which at the end of the day, could be a concern as well for not just for the type of decision making that we created domestically, but for our partners. But at the end of the day, if efficiency can be ensured, performance, and of course accountability in times of problems, then all is going to be well. I think one key factor here, one of the challenge for of making such a coalition is about signaling, because the type of people who fills in each positions is also a particular signals, not just to ourselves but also to our partners. Partners will need to know whether Indonesia is dependable, whether we will be quick in action, and whether our policies will change or not change, whether their patience and due diligence will be rewarded in the long time. We've got several policies in the first, last 5 years, such as downstreaming, local content requirements, and also defense relations. I'm sure our partners would like to see, because of these new personnel in these positions, whether that will continue or not. How much will that continue?
And definitely this is an image that is going to be given to the international community, how powerful and very dominant Indonesia is right now because of the coalition, and how strong hold within the personnel that he's appointed for his cabinet itself. Now, as we know, the retired General President Prabowo Subianto and his foreign ministry both have military background. And how will this definitely shape Indonesia's defense strategy, Mas Waffaa? And will Indonesia take more assertive role in regional security matters, such as right now that is escalating right here in our region, the South China Sea dispute?
Absolutely. I think I have high hopes on that one. I think we can learn from his time as defense minister. We can see that he has his ideas about peace and welfare, about how to end a conflict. And I'm sure he would like to get these out in international forums and regional forums, be it in proposing peace plans outside the country or continuing with our own plan and agenda in terms of, for example, defense procurement. But importantly, I think with this type of coalition, how is he going to be willing to hear different voices? Because there's a potential tendency of groupthink as well, because he's been, appointing his close aides. And of course, we've also heard that he would like to be his own foreign minister and his own defense minister, because he's such a strong voice. And I've, of course, from listening to his speeches in the past decade, his worldview can be really about great power politics, about the West and the rest, about the rise of the developing countries, which is absolutely fantastic as a guideline, but the world is so much more. We have, for example, we have to pay attention to principles like international principles, international laws, and of course the voice of the small countries, the small of each sovereign countries. And therefore his activism can be good, but it needs to come through checks and balances inside the country as well, which hopefully he will take in really seriously.
Okay, some very good points that you brought up there. So, going off of that obviously the first 100 days, very important, all eyes on the administration. But basically in the early days, what sort of foreign policy do you see the president adopting in the early part of his presidency?
Right. I think we've got a couple of interesting points that he made yesterday in the inauguration ceremony, his speech in the inauguration ceremony. He's talking about how Indonesia should not be an ostrich. I think I've heard that, as in, putting our head below the ground, where there's all these problems around us. So we need to be more active. That's one. He also talked about how we should not be caught up in statistics, or be take for granted that we're in the G20, that our growth is good, and so on. And this was juxtaposed, I guess, with the presence of world leaders in attendance. We got Bongbong Marcos, we got Anwar Ibrahim. So I think if we can see the first 100 days, I hope that he will rekindle this relationship with world leaders and show that Indonesia is here, Indonesia is present, a bit more so than I'm sure a lot of critics will agree of under the Jokowi era, who is much more domestic oriented, much more development oriented domestically. And again, I don't think this agenda of Jokowi will necessarily dissipate, because Prabowo is also talking about self-sufficiency in terms of energy, in terms of food. He's talking about us being a global food barn. Of course, downstreaming policies will also be there. But right now, we're too much focused on promoting our products and hard culture. I think we need to add that with a lot more of our visions, our principles, our strategy, our strategic thinking. And next year will be crucial. I think it would be a stage for him, because it will mark, I think, 70th year of the Asia-Africa Conference,
Yes.
2025. That, I think, I predict that would be the first stage for him to bring out his own foreign policy vision.
Yeah, and also when as you were speaking about the inauguration speech, he also mentioned that the bilateral relation between Indonesia now under his presidency, we will have great partnership with neighboring countries and also friendly countries of Indonesia, but also we've been colonized before, so we will not stand down. We will stand on our ground foot, right? We are, like you said, we are an equal. In regards to that, though, right now it is will be an easy time, especially for President Prabowo in regards to the geopolitical tensions right now. And we know that he has military background, exquisite one, if I may say so myself, but there are going to be challenges where right now we need a president, or we need a head of state that needs to kind of require a nuanced and pragmatic approach to the foreign policy. So with that said, seeing how the figure of President Prabowo is, what would you think will be his challenges?
Right. In terms of challenges, probably I'll talk about the global one first. I think we're entering a really polarized period in the past at least 2 decades. And of course, the polarization between great powers, between big powers, US and China, that would be one. And that has spread across sectors. It'll spread in our global supply chain of energy and minerals, which could affect our ability to connect with partners. Who's to say that in the next 5 years, we will not be able to trade to certain countries or build more relations with certain countries because of that polarization. So in the global stage, the relations between these great powers is so stressful for developing countries like us. And of course, the other one would be frustrations from developing countries in terms of double standards, not just in the application of international law and how multilateral fora is being used, but also how the race to this new global standards, be it in environment, in sustainable green transition, whether it could be made more fair for developing countries like us. So these would be some of the big challenges. And then we transition to some of the key ones that we're saying global level will be Israel and Palestine. How can we make use of our limited leverage in that one? Some predictions around in the Indo-Pacific region, if you call it that. Some of the predictions of conflict in years like 2027 is going to happen in around next 5 years. So the Taiwan Strait contingency, the South China Sea, especially between Philippines and China, Myanmar, developments in Korean Peninsula, which is in the past year has been dramatically declining, is also a concern for Indonesia if we are going to play an active role to secure the stability of the region, and not just be in our backseat witnessing what's going to happen.
All right, some of those issues that you brought up and the challenges that the administration will be facing is basically a lot of them faced in the ASEAN region. We know that global international relations competition is heating up. Yes, ASEAN, we are as one, but we are also our individual countries. How do you think Indonesia should act, and where should we be positioning ourselves?
Absolutely. I think for the past 2 decades, we've been investing so much in ASEAN, but at the same time, in the past 5 years at least, I think I can sense a growing frustration as well with how Indonesia's leadership is less prominent, in my sense, at the ASEAN level, because one, the voices of the other ASEAN countries is now for stronger. We've got a lot of leaders outside the traditional five. Vietnam is a leader, for example, as your news just now showcased with the $1 million deal from the Korea.
That's right.
Of course, we've got Thailand and of course Singapore and the Philippines. They have their own crisis and interest. So I think one of the key thing is to rebuild Indonesia's leadership, because we've got that in the past, more so because of our traditional relations. But as we move to the 21st century, we've got our market elsewhere, we've got our defense relations set up elsewhere. I think there's a need to rekindle bilateral relations with ASEAN member states, and that would build on to our leadership at the forum. And so consensus will be easier to build, and because there's a sense that right now ASEAN is very bureaucratized, very over institutionalized, and that leaves less room for innovations in dealing with some of the issues that I mentioned, in like South China Sea and Myanmar. We're so very on the book, we're just looking at the book of our guidelines and rules, and we're less inclined to explore non-traditional traditional ways in diplomacy. And that's one of the things that he have to do, to build coalitions as well with our partners in the ASEAN.
Very true.
And definitely, Mas Waffaa, we're now, speaking and discussing about how the future holds for Indonesia, especially under the presidency and administration of President Prabowo Subianto. We know now before the inauguration that President Prabowo has already visited several countries, in addition putting a member of his party in the foreign minister position. Is this a sign of President Prabowo taking more international issues seriously and more hands-on, as opposed to the last administration where, this kind of international conflicts and issues was, taken under more into the foreign affairs minister?
Yeah, I absolutely think that that one of the key things that we will see from his activism. He'll be more bold in saying what his visions are, what he wants from foreign partners. I think we see that yesterday in the inauguration speech, where how he calls out partners, how he calls out at times in English as well, right? And of course, he's really proficient in a lot of language, not just English. I think French and German is also one of those languages, and so we know that he can say what he wants. So that's a really good modality as a world leader, which differentiates him from, I think, our President Joko Widodo. So yes, activism will be that, but of course we'll also watch him about how principled his stance will be, because he's been active in a lot of countries. Like I think he visits multiple countries, more so than Jokowi himself probably in the past months, leading up to the inauguration yesterday. And us analysts have been trying to see the pattern of the choice of the countries that he visited. And we don't know too much about the agenda about the visit, so we keep guessing about the range of countries that he visited. Right, it could be for a lot of things, but so I think a principled foreign policy that gives us a good signals as Indonesia, as a country free and active, but also principled international law and democracy, that would be good.
Okay, so let's expand a little bit on that. Yes, you did mention he visited approximately, we're losing count here, nearing or more than 20 countries in the last few months alone. Many newly appointed presidents, you find, will do this as soon as they're appointed president. They'll start making state visits to other countries. But he did this prior to his inauguration. Yes, we don't know much about the actual reasons or what some of the details were behind some of the meetings they had behind closed doors. But what we do know is that he did continue to reiterate the free and active foreign policy. What do you think the reasons are behind this and its significance?
Right. If I can, I guess from what has happened, I think one of the key things is that he's looking to balance relations between partners, especially those who are, I think, in the world right now is less seen as the countries who are, I can say, reliable or pro-West, because he's visited a lot of countries who are, I think, in rivalry with the so-called West, right, with the US and also like Russia. And of course, his first visit after being elected is China as well. But I think we can see that he's trying to balance that relation as well and playing the free and active. Of course, for example, he visited Japan, right? and of course France, of course, which is a really good signals for us to witness that he's actually willing to entertain different political alignments to explore and deepen relations. And it could be for many things. It could be for businesses. It could be for in the capacity of his capacity as a defense minister. It could be for defense relations of exporting, Indonesia's defense assets. We're seeing his car now is the
Garuda.
Yeah.
Garuda, the
Yeah.
one made by Pindad, which
Correct.
is a really great showcase of our products, which is also more defense related, and so that would be a good showcase for our partners as well, and that's something that we're looking for him to deepen relations with multiple partners without specific alignments.
And I suppose we will find out soon in the coming months as well the purpose of many of these visits.
Definitely, and it's great too that Mas Waffaa mentioning about the Garuda, because it is locally made right here by PT Pindad, and he is the first, or President Prabowo is the first president ever that is using the presidential vehicle that's locally made right here in Indonesia. So that was a great showcasing also. So in regards to this though, we know that Indonesia, Mas Waffaa, has always been not leaning to the west or even to the east. We have been very independent where we position ourselves, in the past few years. So what now with the President Prabowo Subianto and in the administration, what role could Indonesia play in strengthening ASEAN unity, relevance, and also, the image throughout the global community?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, Indonesia's right now, Indonesia's brand of foreign policy has been associated in the past 5 years with more so with economic diplomacy, more so about promoting our products. So the next 5 years with Prabowo at the helm, we would want to see Indonesia's contribution and position in world affairs. What type of standards are we going to promote outside? Because we're seeing a lot of double standards. We're seeing a lot of inconsistencies in the between global leaders. So we were missing that type of leaders who would like to promote these type of values of all, like multilateralism, open trade, and so we wish that Prabowo could be that type of president. And so one of the main fora for that is of course ASEAN, because has been for long our I think the cornerstone of our foreign policy. In the past 5 years, it could get frustrating because of the number of of our, I guess, ASEAN Indonesia's proposal in ASEAN could get diminished as well, with the ASEAN politics, with how many countries are in there, how many bureaucracies are involved. But that's the reality, and that's the way of consensus. So I think to showcase leadership, we have to be able to provide more public goods to ASEAN. So not just, for example, in terms of security, but also economy. So it requires burning money in a sense to pay for meetings, to pay for conferences that is outside of the annual agenda of the ASEAN chairmanship. We need to do more. Right now, for example, Thailand is doing that in the case of Myanmar, for example, and we need to be doing that as well. We need to be, I guess, burning money to do, not in a simple case would be meetings, but just to build on ideas and innovate foreign policy innovations outside the routine. So that's what I think we would like to see him do.
Completely agree with you there. Mas Waffaa, thank you so much for your time this morning. Taking time out of your busy schedule as well for being able to connect with us online to discuss more about the new chapter for our great nation that hopes to tell a great story under the new Prabowo administration. Thank you for your time and have yourself a wonderful day. That was Muhammad Waffaa Kharisma, the researcher from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS. Have a great day. We are going to take a short break, but we have more to cover because we're just discussing foreign policy, but there's so much more to talk about. We're going to talk about how this new administration is going to handle economic challenges in our country as well. We're going to talk about the president's new car.
The Mount Garuda. Yes, indeed.
So we're going to take a short break here. All that to come in our next few segments. But in the meantime, a quick reminder before we take our next break to make sure you stay connected with us at CToday News on Instagram, X, and YouTube. We'll be right back after this.